Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison, and this is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different fields, different genres, just people doing really cool things in their space and things that we can take bits and pieces away from their journey and what they're doing and hopefully bring them into our own lives as well. We talk to athletes, we talk to CEOs. Today, we have a really cool guest that's going to kind of combine both of those things. So just before we jump into that, this episode in particular is brought to us by Thirdsy. And you've probably heard us. We've actually interviewed the CEO of Thirdsy before. And they create natural products that help athletes and high performers get better quality rest and recovery from physical and mental stress. And so their PM Recovery Collagen that they have is a melatonin-free, sedative-free drink powder that helps you get the best quality rest while supporting joint and muscle repair as well. So basically just if you take a little bit before bed, wake up a little more energized, hopefully, and ready to take on your busy day, whether that's in business, whether that's in your workout in the morning as well. So just go to Thirdsy, so that's THIRDZY or ZY.com, and use the code BIBM20, and you can save 20% on those things as well. So definitely check it out. And today I'm really happy to have Reagan Carey with us today. She's the commissioner of the Premier Hockey Federation, the PHF, and she previously served as USA Hockey's director of women's hockey. She was overseeing the U.S. Women's national teams, the ones that won Olympic silver in Sochi and gold in PyeongChang. And before focusing on women's hockey, she also worked for both the NBA's Atlanta Hawks and the NHL's Atlanta Thrashers in the past as well on sports development, performance, and marketing. And she was herself, from what I understand, a two-sport athlete back in college as well, and served as captain of both her hockey and her volleyball team. So some really good, cool combinations of things that hopefully we can go into a bit of all of those things today, Regan. But thank you. I know you're really busy. Everybody's, I know you're preparing for an all-star game, all of those things as well. So lots of travel, but thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and appreciate all the great content you put out there. So I'm happy to be here and be part of it.
Well, thank you very much. And I will tell you, the first thing I think that would be really neat to, for our audience, because we do have that kind of combination of both sports and just people that work in business and would be interested in some of the leadership component of being commissioner of a league. But you joined the league when it was kind of getting ready to set rosters and do all of those things and just build into this current season that's happening now. Do you feel like you're kind of getting in the groove as a leader now? Does it feel like it's still all quite new? How's that time been so far for you?
Well, it's been great. It's been exciting. We've done a lot of work. It's been a hustle, but I think we've seen a lot of traction early, so that makes everybody more energized to keep going. And it's a great group to work with. A lot of support and a lot of people that are just truly passionate about seeing women's hockey thrive. So when you've got a group like that, it's similar to working with an Olympic team. Everybody's at the best of their game. They're elite performers in their own right. So and they're really passionate about why they're doing it. So to go to work every day and be able to do this as somebody that's played hockey, my whole life and been a big part of just growing up and the lessons you learn along the way, it's a real privilege. And yeah, it's been great. And I think we're hitting our stride here in the mid-season point.
Yeah, well, and just before we delve into a bunch of the PHF stuff, because you did, you were with USA Hockey for quite a while. You did a lot in building and growth there, and also in some pretty successful teams that were happening at the exact same time as well. How has that transition been? Because you're also going into a something it's very much startup build kind of phase as well. Has it been an easy transition? Is it something that's quite different than the role you would have played just not too long ago?
Well, I didn't set out to have this theme in my career, but somehow it's kind of weaved its way in. I guess it's probably a sign that's what I like to do. Even in Atlanta, working with the NHL and the Thrashers there, that was you had to prove that team within an established league, but it was a new market and a new front office. And so I think I probably absorbed a lot of how that works and how to get that done really well. And took that to USA Hockey. And obviously that's an established program, but we had a lot of big goals for what we wanted to do on and off the ice. And so in a lot of ways, that was a growing and building experience, as you said, and hopefully leaving it in an even better spot than we found it. And so it's similar with the PHF. I mean, there's just a lot of great potential here, a lot of great work that's already been done, but we know we have a lot to do to be able to get it where it needs to be and to be for that next generation. So I think I find that energizing. I find the challenge a lot of fun, and so there's a lot of similarities, I think, across the board. But I've learned a lot from athletes along the way too, and being in sports my whole life, and just the opportunity to rise to the challenge. I think we all learned that along the way.
Actually, that's an interesting thing I did want to ask you about, because a bit of it is, I mean, you've been an athlete yourself. You learn a lot from athletes and in this. Do you see a lot of the skills and competencies that either you learned as an athlete or that you're picking up from kind of being in that environment? Do those translate well into what you do from a business standpoint and a leadership standpoint? Like, do you see those things connecting from that end?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've primarily played team sports, so that probably lends itself even more. But I'm sure it crosses over on all platforms. But you learn that you're part of something, so you're part of something that's really bigger than yourself, and I think that's an important lesson to take away. And just to know that other people are contributing, have better skill sets than you do, and together you can achieve something better than you can on your own. So I think just that camaraderie. Part of sport and part of having successful business is something that's really appealing to me.
Yeah, and being a commissioner, I would assume, and maybe you can tell us about it a little bit, is that it's a bit of a different role, because it is a true kind of leadership role. But I would assume that especially in the stage that you're at right now, is there a lot of do you have to use a lot of influencing skills? Is it really focused on partnering, or is that done at a different kind of phase? Like, what has been the biggest, I guess, focus for you, this year so far?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. I think
Yeah.
that's, being able to balance it all. I mean, I think that's where probably our success has been with the PHF. Everything matters, every detail, the macro and the micro. And so I can't say there's one particular focus. Certainly communicating with our player pool and communicating with our teams, and just kind of making sure we're listening and sharing. I think that communication is really important. But where we put our focus, it's if you could look at the agenda of all the leadership and positions within our staff, it's a little bit of everything every day, and that's what makes it exciting. There's never a dull moment here. So
Yeah. Well, and it's for those people that maybe aren't in sports or listening, it probably is very similar to a startup environment where you don't have a big kind of corporate set role. It's a little bit bit broader for probably every person in the organization, I would assume, at this point.
Yeah, being resourceful, and lean on quite often a saying from our mental skills coach with our Olympic team, Dr. Colleen Hacker, always shared with us to adapt and adjust and just keep moving forward. And we have that adapt and adjust mindset. So we just keep finding a way and getting to our goal, no matter what the obstacle is.
Now, you did mention that there's a lot going on in women's sports and women's hockey right now, and a lot of focus on that. And and maybe you could talk a little bit about. I mean, one of the things is that you have had sponsors coming in that are not just focused on being a sponsor for a hockey team. They're sponsoring something that's maybe even a little broader than that, about kind of opportunity in sport and things like that. How has that been for you this year, to be able to see kind of some of those organizations that you've been able to partner with, and maybe that you've been speaking to about things moving ahead?
Yeah, it's really special. I wouldn't often think of sponsorship as a real meaningful, special experience. Yeah. It's certainly important, and there's a lot of people that care when you're in those meetings. But I think particularly, at least in my experience with the PHF so far, we're really looking to have partnerships that are long-term, that believe in our vision, believe in the culture we're building, and the community of people that come with the PHF, not just the players on the ice. So to be able to have those conversations, and when it's time to align with a partner that really understands that and wants to be part of it and support it, then that's a real special partnership. You feel like you have a true teammate as we continue to grow and develop. So I look forward to having long relationships with a lot of people that are getting involved with the PHF.
Now, you've had some growth this year in particular. I mean, obviously you've brought in Montreal has a franchise, and that's been kind of a nice addition, and obviously even some players that you've added in this year who are doing quite well for you as well. Do you see that growth, because everything is kind of you're still within an economy that is kind of edgy for the next little while. How do you see you've had a lot of growth this year? Do you project that continuing in the same way, or how are you planning that way from a business standpoint as well?
Well, we're in such a great moment for women's sports in general. So I think we're continue to put ourselves in the best position to, ride that wave and be
Yeah.
part of also creating that energy for the wave. So I anticipate us to continue to grow, whether that's with expansion or just, the depth and the opportunities we're bringing to players and the excitement and entertainment we're bringing to fans and different opportunities with sharing access to our games. And we have a great partnership with ESPN, but on top of that, we can keep growing. So I think we're in a strong growth mode for our league. And again, it's a lot of credit to the people that are around us, not just the people in the front office.
And how much impact is that when you have partnerships with ESPN and other kind of, when you get more streaming access, when you get more kind of, out there, and you do a great job in being able to build a social media presence for the league as well. How much does that play into the ability to bring kind of more people into the fold? Because some of it is attendance, but some of it is also just, how do you build profile for the league, and how's that been for you? And are there things that you found have really worked well for you in the last little while?
Yeah, well, as you said, social media is such a key part of it for us to connect and keep everybody informed of what's happening on and off the ice with our league. And broadcast is critical. Having access to our sport, which hasn't been done in the past. So
Mhm.
particularly, this league has a history of being a trailblazer in a lot of ways, and being able to have a full season of women's pro hockey accessible to fans is terrific. And for us, we've been really growing our global game as well. So that access is even more important from that standpoint. So yeah, we'll look to keep it, that space evolves almost, I feel like, daily. There's always an article or somebody else that has a new idea or a new way to do it,
Yeah.
a new approach. So we really got to stay on top of that if we want to be successful.
Yeah, that agility is actually, I mean, at least you have that ability to do it right now too, which is nice. It's to be able to swing quickly when you see that there's an idea you want to take advantage of.
Absolutely.
So going along with those things that uh, you've got lots of demands as commissioner and lots of things happening that you have to do, especially right now. So let's say you're coming up to a big event and things like that. How do you personally be able to kind of balance those things yourself, where you probably have to make sure that you're living as healthy a lifestyle as you possibly can, while still kind of being probably a pretty hard driver from a business standpoint? How do you balance those things yourself?
Yeah, well, I think that's always a learning process as well. And, being able to be in a business and a sport and in a job that I love to do, a lot of it doesn't feel like work, even though we have a lot going on, and
Yeah.
sometimes it can get a little stressful, but, you are doing something that's really unique, and it's a real privilege to do. So I remind myself of that in some of those more busy, stressful stretches. But luckily, I got to spend some time right before taking this job with working in a very unique special group in and of itself with Google, and a group that's called the Vitality Lab, and they
Mhm.
have all these experts in wellness and life balance and all those things. So I feel like for about 2 years I was in a master class of really the importance of it, and making sure
Wow.
you dedicate time for it. So whether that's just making sure you're moving around, and or some quick meditation and things like that, those are all new kind of commitments I've had in the last few years that have really made a difference for me.
Wow, that really interesting stuff. And one of the things that you talk a lot about, and I know you've talked a lot about it in your role right now, but also in other roles, is you talk a lot about the importance of transparency, and especially when you're dealing with that, where you have constituents like the players groups. I mean, in something like this, but almost in every organization, that kind of building of trust is important. Tell us a little bit more about that from your end. Like, where did you really develop that, and why is it important from a leadership standpoint to make sure that you've got that feeling of transparency with the people that you serve?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to my appreciation of just the concept of it being us and we, and we're all in this together. And so the more we can communicate and the more we can eliminate, any boundaries and miscommunication, the more we talk about things, the more we communicate, the more we share what our objectives are, and take information from those that are around us, then the more successful we can be, in my opinion. And luckily, that's proven itself well in my career, and I just think you learn a lot that way. And so, if we can build an environment where people feel comfortable saying what's important to them, and being able to help be part of growing and developing in a way that maybe you didn't see it initially, is really important. Yeah, and I just think that camaraderie gets stronger and stronger the more people understand that they're part of it, and that they can have a say and they can be a direction for us. And I just think everybody's a stakeholder. If you're a player, you have options to go places and to play and to do things, and we should always consider that. And so we want to be able to be a place people are excited to show up, people are excited to contribute to, and take a lot of pride in, and not feel like an obligation. So the more we can involve everybody and learn from everybody, the better we're going to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess if you are like, from the standpoint of your players are probably some of the more kind of open, that a lot of them are very open on social media. They have all those things. It's probably a very different environment to manage in from that standpoint. Has that been different for you? I mean, you would have come from probably some organizations that had really tight controls over all of those things, but it was also a different time. It's actually been interesting to see how, when you have that more open, how it actually helps grow the game as well. So how's that experience been for you as being the commissioner of something like
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's been nice to be part of pro sports again, which is a little different than national team
Yeah,
window when it comes to social media. So,
yeah,
a real focus on, national teams are often in these, bubbles for, world championships and Olympics, and you have to have a balance because it's just so much at one time. In pro sports, you have a longer season and there's just more space and time to balance that a little bit more appropriately. So it's been fun. And I just talked to one of our players, Reagan Rust, earlier, which is
yeah,
I never get to say hi, Reagan, to anybody,
yeah.
so that was fun in and of itself.
I guess
But
that's true.
yeah, but she's does a great job on social media, and it's really fun to watch. So I mean, that's conversation we want to learn from her and
Mhm.
learn what drives her to do that, and it certainly helps the league. So it's a good balance, and I personally have a big learning curve on that, but I trust that others around us are doing that really well. Yeah, and it's just fun. I think it's fun to engage with fans and get everybody excited about the sport.
Yeah. Now, when because you've been in sports and business for a long time, and you've probably been around, especially in the types of things you've been in, some really inspiring leadership and things like that. Do you have a couple of people who were, wow, they were my mentors as we came along, or was there somebody that you really looked to and has made a big impact on your career?
Oh yeah. I'm a kind of a whole village kind of person when it comes to
Yeah.
that question. I could spend another whole half an hour talking about everybody. I mean, from the beginning of my career, which is great. Some of them have joined the PHF. Our chief marketing officer was somebody that was a great mentor to me early on in my professional career, and has joined our league. And just along the way, I mean, I love learning from people that have done the work before us, and learn those lessons. We'll make plenty of our own, but it's good to avoid the ones that you can learn in advance. But yeah, I just have so many, and I'm so grateful to that. And then starting, the reason I'm probably in sports is more family oriented. And my grandfather was a two-time Olympian in cross-country skiing, and I learned quite a bit from him about being from a small town, and seeing what sports can do, and how it can change lives and the trajectory of people's lives. So yeah, I saw firsthand growing up how meaningful it is, and then got many opportunities after that to just learn from a ton of great people.
Well, and that meaningful piece, I'll maybe connect in one more time, because what you're doing now could just be, to some people might just be it's a role and I do it, but what you're doing probably is making a fairly significant impact on young girls that are watching, the people in your league, and just generally the opportunities for women in sport, women in business, women in kind of different areas as well. Um, how does that feel, knowing that you're part of making that kind of an impact from in this stage of your career? How does that feel to know that you're one of those people leading the charge in those areas?
Yeah, well, I know how impactful, I'll just I'll just stick with women's hockey, although I could go in a lot of different directions. But
Yeah.
Camry Ganato, Manon Rheaume, Kelly Dyer, these pioneers of women's hockey and how impactful it was. I have my original stick signed by Camry Ganato right here in the corner, and how when I was, she wasn't that much older than than I was, but how inspiring it was to meet her and Kelly Dyer and to see Manon just playing pro hockey, all these things that really just light up inside of people that are resonating with that. Hey, that's what I want to do, and I know how important and impactful I can be. So to know that I have an opportunity to do that for someone is what's part of the driving force of making sure we do it well, and do something that these young girls can be proud of. I was just at a Boston Pride game, and it was just so fun. I was talking with a bunch of the young girls that were in the fans or
Yeah.
stands, and they were all youth hockey players. And I asked them, did they come to the games a lot? And I asked them if their parents are season ticket holders, and she said, "No, I'm a season ticket holder." This is like a 10-year-old girl. So, for a 10-year-old girl to be able to say that about a women's pro hockey team, I
Yeah.
mean, we've certainly made a lot of strides in a short amount of time.
Well, and I think, think of 15 years from now, when that individual is that young girl is a little bit older, how much that impact exponentially gets larger. So
Yeah.
kudos to
I
you
mean,
guys for doing that.
in my hockey playing lifetime, I got to see the first Olympics, and I'm getting to see the first pro hockey women's league that are paying players livable wage and so on. And that's I'm not that old yet, so that's a short,
Yeah.
relatively short amount of time since
Yeah.
all that's happened. So what the next 10-20 years will look like, who knows, but it's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, very cool. And I'm going to go back to just for a second on that transparency thing, because I think, I talk to, leaders, whether it's in this or other things, and they talk about kind of building that trusting relationship is so important to them. And because that is something that is a focus for you in your leadership, do you have a couple of, just a couple of tricks or specific things that you think really make sense in being able to help build that transparency with your constituents? Do you have one or two things that you could kind of throw out there would be good tactics for people?
Yeah, well, I think part of it's just, by example of being able to share, what you know and what you don't know. I think
Yeah.
being able to be open about that. I mean, I don't think, and perhaps it's, evolving in this direction, but I don't think it benefits anybody to try and pretend like you know everything that's happening and you're the expert in everything, and particularly in a league. So to be able to share, what you feel strongly about and what you know, and the things that you think are going to be important, but then to be open about the things that you're not so confident in and you're still learning about. I think that kind of sets a good tone for people to feel comfortable doing the same thing, and that we're not expecting everybody to know everything.
Yeah. Well, and I love the whole kind of idea that yeah, you don't know everything, and make sure that you're upfront with that. That isn't just in sports; it's in basically everything that you go through as well. I mean, that's how you build a more authentic relationship with people. So.
Yeah, I think it's part of a lot of the groups I've been a part of, whether it's team and with players or just work staff. But having that desire to learn and be curious, and that kind of beginner's mindset mentality, where there's still a lot for us to figure out, and the more we're open about it, the better. And one of my pet peeves is having a meeting and then the meeting that happens after the meeting. So
Yeah.
like, the more transparency we can have, we can just be as effective as possible and save time. So I'm also not the most patient person. So if we can just knock it out all in one, then I think we're off to a good start. So yeah, that's always the goal. It's not easy to do, and I don't succeed at it every time either. But that's the intent.
That's great advice, and so I mean I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening with the PHF, and I'd like to, if people are wanting it, like are looking at how do I follow more about what's going on, maybe before we even do that, you do have a big event coming up, so I don't know if you want to mention the All-Star game coming up. Do you want to give a brief overview of what that's
Sure.
coming up with?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I should say, as I share what that's going to be about, is, it's a big part of building a community. We want to honor the past and make the moment and inspire the future. That's a little bit of our internal mantra. So our All-Star will reflect some of that, of bringing some of the past pioneers together with our PHF All-Stars, and a lot of youth involvement. So across the board, it'll be a great integration and weaving a lot of hockey moments together in one event. So we'll be in Toronto, and it'll be we'll kick it off at the Hockey Hall of Fame with a reception with their players and some other legends, and then go into Saturday, where we'll have a U.S. team, a Canadian team, and an international team. Just really speaks to the depth of our league right now and just the scope of the global game. So we're excited to see a little national pride on the line, in addition to playing for their PHF team. And yeah, it's going to be a great night, and it'll be on ESPN too.
Awesome. Okay. Well,
And TSN for you.
well, and
So,
TSN, I was going to say, we're close enough. We're in Toronto, so we're close enough to actually attend, and but make sure that if you're somewhere else and want to take a look at this, that's a great opportunity to get exposed to some of the not only the players, but also just more of the the sport itself, because having some of those people that have been around for a while, I think that's a great addition, and being able to celebrate a bit of some of the people that pioneered to get us here, and hopefully we see some of that moving forward as well. So I know that you're extremely busy, so really appreciate it. If people are going to follow the PHF, what would be some of the best ways to do that?
well, we're on
Reagan?
all the social media, and obviously, yeah, just phf.com. We've got all the content there. So
Right.
wherever you're interested in finding us, we'll be there, and trying to keep everybody posted and welcome feedback as well.
Awesome. Okay, well, make sure that those are all in the show notes. So click through any of those. Definitely check it out, and be sure to watch some of the games. It's great hockey to watch too. So again, know you're really busy, but thank you very much for taking the time, Reagan. This has been great, and you've shared some really cool stuff today. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I've enjoyed it as well, and I'll see you at the All-Star game then.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and to everybody else, thanks very much, and we will talk again on Big Idea, Big Moves.